Good morning to you from where you're watching us from. This is Morning at 10 TV, and this particular segment, we call it the Take Note. And in this segment today, we'll, turn that name into the procurement classroom. The government will soon read the national budget, and this is set to take place next week on the 14th of June. And with this presents great opportunities for SMEs to, harness and get down to get these tenders to earn an extra buck, so to speak. And in studio to teach us all this when it comes to matters, tendering processes, public procurement is Mr. John Kakunglu Walugembe, who is the Executive Director of the Federation of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises in Uganda. Welcome to studio.
Thank you, Mala, for having me here.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Now, what are these most outsourced services and products by the government? Maybe we can start at that before we get to the processes.
Okay. First of all, I'll mention that government is the largest customer in this country and in many countries. For instance, in this budget, government is allocating 29.2 trillion to different things.
Yes.
Most of this money is going to go into the procurement of services, of supplies, or works.
Yes.
So these are the three main categories. So if you want to supply to government, you're either supplying a service, you are just making supplies, stationery, and things like that, or you're supplying works. Now, for a number of years, government has been allocating a lot of money to the infrastructural sector. So it means that the works budget is huge.
Now, when you speak of works, maybe you can break it down for us. What are this? Is it stationery? Is it uniforms for the soldiers? What exactly? So maybe the SME who's watching us can get an idea and see where the opportunity is.
Okay, so if you're talking about works, you're talking about all the opportunities surrounding construction, hardware.
Correct.
It means if you're a hardware dealer, if you're a transporter, if you supply cement, if you make bricks, so anything hardware, I think goes into works. Now, if you're talking about supplies, you're talking about materials. For traders, you buy from one place, you sell to government. So this is stationery, this is uniforms, this is food. So most of the government's budget goes towards these two areas. Say the service, the supplies, and of course for services, you're the lawyer and you're supplying your services, you're the small consultant and you're offering those services.
Yes.
So a range of opportunities that SMEs can take advantage of.
Okay, so now actually we're getting to that point whereby the government will open up and invite people to apply for these tendering processes.
Correct.
But where do I start? Maybe, for example, I know that there's an opportunity for me to supply maybe uniform to whatever arm of the government.
Yes.
Where do I start? Where do I start with the process? Where do I get the forms? Is there an e-application where I can get the application form from?
First of all, I'll start by stating that SMEs have not been benefiting much in spite of government's efforts. Government is trying.
Is it lack of information?
Yeah, there are a range of reasons. Most of them say they don't know where the opportunities are. Some say, I don't know how to bid.
Yes.
Some say we're a new company. Some say, oh, government takes long to pay. Some say, oh, the procurement process is very lengthy and bureaucratic. I don't want to waste my time.
Which it is.
Of course it is, but it's becoming easier.
Yes.
Government is promoting what they call e-procurement. So it means that as we go forward, procurement is going to take less and less time. The other aspect is that government has put a cap on how long procurement should take. It used to take 170 days.
Yes.
They have now put a cap of 90 days. Within 90 days, which is 3 months, the entire procurement process should be done. So you should have a clear idea whether you've been selected or not. Now, going back to your initial question.
Yes.
Where do you start? The starting point is to understand that government follows processes and procedures. Government does not operate like a private company. They operate on processes and procedures. I'll start by requirements. If you are to supply to government, there are certain things that you must be. One, you must be a legally registered legal entity. So if you're not registered out there and you're an SME, well, bother, but first start by registering.
Okay.
That would be my encouragement. Secondly, you shouldn't be bankrupt, insolvent, or under receivership.
What does that mean? Does it mean if my bank account, for example, for my small business, does not have enough money, maybe let's put a number to it. Maybe I have just 300,000 in my account. Does it mean that if all the other requirements I actually fit in, but the the only limitation is that I have 300,000 shillings, then I wouldn't be eligible to this.
No, that's actually not a limitation. To be bankrupt is a legal term. You're declared bankrupt.
So
if you have
meaning
debts
yes.
that you cannot service, then at some point you'll be declared bankrupt, in which case you cannot be relied upon to supply.
Oh, okay. So it's just bankruptcy, but not the level of the money that you have to supply the tender. Okay, all right.
It's an issue of bankruptcy. And then, thirdly, you must demonstrate that you have been a very committed citizen, paying your taxes, making your NSSF contributions. So you need a certificate of tax clearance. Okay. So if you've not been paying tax, please first sort out those issues before you consider taking advantage of government tenders. So government follows requirements, and the process is like this. Government first assesses needs. What are we going to procure? Then it puts out a tender. When it puts out a tender, request for proposals, people submit their proposals, they are evaluated, and then a contract is awarded, and then it's managed.
Do they just use print to put out the tenders? Where can people source this information from?
Okay, that's my second point. So
yes.
they have been relying a lot on print. So if you look at newspapers, you'll see a range of procurement opportunities, and different newspapers have different days when they run these tender opportunities.
Correct.
I know the Monitor does it either on Wednesday or something like that.
Yes.
But government is also set up what they call a tender board on the PPDA website. It means that if you need to see what opportunities are available in government right now, visit the PPDA website and go to the tender board and see what opportunities exist. So you should be able to look out for opportunities. Now the other issue is that you must be able to identify your fit. It's not that every opportunity is relevant for you. You have a unique experience, unique expertise. So you must say, what are my experiences, what is my expertise, and which tender am I going to bid for? If you just keep bidding for every tender that comes, you're going to waste resources. Remember, you have to pay money for the bid documents and things like that. Okay. So it means you must be able to select what tenders what works for you or not. And the other issue is that you must put up a good proposal. Don't waste time submitting a below par proposal. Most so if you're a small business.
What are the characteristics of this good proposal?
A good proposal, you must demonstrate that you have done that work before, because government wants to work with people who have an established track record. So
for example, if I've just started my business and maybe 3 months into it, does it mean that then I won't run a chance of winning this tender? You
could. There's a window for small scale businesses. Okay. So for instance, even when you're registering on the PPDA role of providers, you pay 40% less. So government is trying to encourage more local suppliers by creating certain opportunities for small scale producers. So what I would say, if you're small, if you're recently registered, consider starting at that level than trying to compete with the big guys where you won't really stand a chance. So make sure you put together a good proposal. If you don't have experience, try to talk to people who have done it before so that they help you put together a good proposal. Very, very, very important. It's costly.
Yes.
Remember, you're paying money, you're paying staff to put this thing together. So just ensure that you do a very
good proposal.
Job,
so number one, you said that the proposal needs to ensure that you capture what you're good at.
What you have done, yes.
And what you've already done.
Correct.
The other factor that they shouldn't miss out on.
So you must show that you have demonstrated experience. The other factor is that you must show that you have the capacity in terms of human resource and in terms of finance, depending on the work that you're doing. So if you're doing, say, a contract of 200 billion, and then on your account, over the last 2 years, you've been having an account balance of 5 million Ugandan shillings, you have no financial capacity.
Yes.
So you must demonstrate that, fine, you are bidding for 200 billion contract, but on your account you have been managing contracts of 60 billion and things like that. So technical expertise is one thing, but also technical and financial capacity is very important. Now technical, it means the human resources. Even for works, you must show that you have engineers, they are qualified, they are licensed, and they are willing to work for you. If you're doing a service, if you're offering a service relies on human resource predominantly. So if you're a consultant, for instance, you must show that you have consultants who deliver the job.
Who deliver the job.
Exactly.
You've spoken about being financial okay, so to speak.
Yes.
So you deal with SMEs on a day-to-day basis.
Correct.
If we have an SME X
Yes.
who feels like, for example, procurement opportunity A is good for me and I can actually deliver excellently.
Yes.
But what is setting me back is the financial bit. I don't have enough money and my account, I've never like, dealt with big cost projects before.
Yes.
How then can one go about it? That there are opportunities where they can quickly borrow the money, deliver on this particular tender and then maybe repay back. Are there leeways like that?
Yes, so banks have put in place mechanisms for contract financing. So it means if you're a reliable customer in a bank and you get a contract and you're supposed to deliver, and it's clear and government has committed itself, you can potentially take this to a bank and they'll finance you to deliver on the job.
So you can actually prove to the bidding committee that you
Yes.
can get this money and that should not let them put you aside.
Correct. Your banker
It's
can
actually-
say, your banker can say, I'll make this money available
so
for you.
go for that letter from your banker
Yeah.
that you can actually get this financing.
Of course, it means
Okay.
that you must also be a reliable customer in a bank. If you have been defaulting, if you're in the red, and then you go to your banker for that letter, they definitely won't give it to you.
Yes.
But if you've been a good client and you've been borrowing and paying and you have a good track record, they'll definitely give you the money if you can demonstrate that
Yes.
you have this contract awarded.
Yeah. So that is already sorted out. The government actually gives priority to a particular group of people,
True.
women, disadvantaged, and all these people. Do you feel like, especially them that fall into this category, get the information right?
No, I think there's still a problem. Most youth and women groups are still looking at getting handouts from government. And I think this is an error on their part. They need to realize that government has a lot of opportunities which they can take advantage of. As I said, even if you're a women group, you must be legal. You can't go there as an NGO and say, oh, we are suffering as government, please help us. No, government operates on delivery. They have a budget.
Yes.
They have rules. If you're a women group, you just tell yourself as a company, show that you have what it takes to deliver, and then you win that. Then you can say, yeah, as you're bidding, you can highlight in your proposal that actually our company is made up of women predominantly. So that as the evaluation committee is looking at the applications, they can say, you know what, let's give these people a chance because they are women owned.
Okay, there's this thing about people shying away from these public procurement opportunities
Yes.
because of corruption.
True.
So it's who you know,
Yes.
how much you can, give off. For example, if a tender is X amount, if, they tell you, if you're to win this tender, if we were to award you this tender,
Yes.
you need to give us 50% of it.
True.
Is that true? Is that being worked on?
I think that because every time there's the huge sums of money, there's a temptation. So we can't say that temptation does not exist.
Yes.
But what is happening is that there are mechanisms are being put in place to make it extremely costly and unlikely that someone will actually make money off corrupt tendencies. For instance, you are having the processes being more transparent. As I've mentioned, you have a tender board. So if there's an opportunity, it's available. You don't control who will apply. You don't control how qualified they are. And then you have an independent contracts committee. We are assuming it's independent.
Yes.
And then, but assuming they are not, and you feel that you've been unfairly treated, you have the opportunity to apply to the Public Procurement and Disposal Authority for an administrative review of the entire process. So mechanisms are in place. The issue of corruption is still a challenge, but I get the impression that headway is being made.
Headway is being made. So it's up to the SMEs to just make sure that they get to the standards that are needed and they do their part.
Yeah, they shouldn't sit there and say, oh, that government, they don't pay, it's full of corruption,
Yes.
it's full of what. The other issue that SMEs need to explore is what I would call subcontracting. See, sometimes you have a big player get a contract and they want smaller people to take chunks of it. So they should also try to establish relationships with existing big players so that they can possibly start by getting subcontracts. And in that way, they build up the experience, they can able to demonstrate that they have the capacity to deliver.
And how do they go about knowing that this is the list of, you know, big fish in this tendering game? Because
Yes.
it is a game at the end of the day. How do they go about knowing that? Is it just for them to do their own research, or there's actually where they can go and get all this information? Does the
PPDA.
Yes, PPDA give a list of maybe history of people who have won tenders before?
So they can keep their ears on the ground in two ways. One, every time an award is made to a company
Yes.
by any particular institution, they pin what I would call an award notice, and it's there for some time to allow people to complain and things like that. So what the SME can do, they can track tenders from when they appear on the PPDA tender board
Yes.
to when they are awarded, to whom has this tender been awarded, and then to establish that relationship. Remember, PPDA maintains a list of service providers to government with their contacts and details.
Correct.
So as an SME, you can actually reach out and say, you know what, yeah, you do that, but we can also support you. And so they should be proactive. I think that's the most important thing. They shouldn't
don't
wait
just
for
sit
government.
down and wait for government.
No,
Yeah.
government cannot look for you to give you business.
Yes.
It's you to be proactive, to look for business, to show that you can. And most importantly, once you get the business, please deliver.
Yes.
We don't want a situation where you've been given a contract, your phone is off, you're not delivering, you're not. If you feel that a certain time frame, you are not able to deliver within a certain time frame, ask for an extension. Explain, write a letter.
Yes.
For these and these reasons, we are unable to deliver within this time frame. Please allow us such and such time within which to complete this work.
Please let us in when it comes to withdrawal terms of contracts or tenders.
Yes.
On what grounds can a tenderer or someone who has won a tender, an SME, be
Yes.
withdrawn from this particular tender? Because I know there are instances whereby you've been told, okay, we've awarded you this tender, but you've done all you can. You from your side, you know that you've delivered, but at the end of the day, you're told, but we got someone else to do this thing. So how can an SME go about knowing that I'm still on course, I'm still the one who is supposed to deliver these services or products, and how can they go about also protecting themselves in terms of information on at what point can I be withdrawn from a tender?
Okay. So if you awarded a contract, the contract spells out conditions under which that contract can be terminated by either party, yourself or the client, in this case, government.
Yes.
But what I can mention on a general, in general terms is that most SMEs fail to deliver as per their proposal. So if you fail to deliver as per your proposal, then you're giving your client the opportunity to cancel or to terminate the contract. Or if you substantially misrepresent what you're able to deliver.
Okay.
In your proposal, you say, I have 5 full-time engineers who are able to deliver on this contract. And then when people come for a site visit, they find that there's one mason, there's no qualified engineer.
Yes.
Then there is a problem.
Yes.
So I think SMEs should avoid misrepresenting. We talked about writing a good proposal, but it should be accurate. There's no point trying to deceive the client.
Yes.
Be honest. If you can't manage a certain contract, try to enter into joint ventures, as I mentioned. Try to look for other partners with whom you can associate
Yes.
to be able to deliver. So if you're unable to perform as per the contract, this presents grounds for termination of the contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You deal with SMEs on a day-to-day basis. What's the biggest, as opposed to the corruption bit, what's the biggest misconception or myth out there when it comes to tenders? What do they tell you on a day-to-day basis? What is keeping them off, as opposed to away from corruption and all these other things, and them thinking that it's taking long and other things? Is there any other thing that keeps them away?
No,
from
the issue is that government takes long to pay.
That's the major one.
That's the major one. And I think government needs to sort out this issue. Domestic debt is a big problem. If government, if an SME supplies you things and you take 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, you're getting credit from SMEs. They have no capacity to offer you credit. You're pushing them under. So I think what government needs to do, and I think that different governments have put a cap The UK government has done that. I know the Kenyan government has also put regulations. How long should you take to pay a small and medium enterprise?
Yes.
Yeah, you shouldn't. If someone has applied, you've said within 90 days, the procurement process should be done. You also put a cap on how long they'll take to be paid. You say within 2 months, an SME that has delivered should have 100% of their payment. If the payment is not able to be made within that stipulated time, then that outstanding amount should attract interest. Because this SME has taken out a facility from a bank, they are being charged interest, and then they are being told, oh, you know, we are waiting for the quarterly release. This is government terminology. Yes. We are waiting for quarterly release, it has not yet come, there have been a budget cut and so on. You're basically pushing the business under. So I think of all the reasons that SMEs give, lack of knowledge, it's complicated, those are all myths.
Yes.
But the issue of prolonged payment is a big issue that government needs to resolve. If it needs to ensure that SMEs supply more goods, products. And
Thank you so much. This has been a classroom. I've personally also learned a lot from you. Thank you so much. I hope you, the SME watching us today, you've learned a lot. Thank you so much for coming in studio.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. So in case you want to get into these opportunities, make sure you check your newspapers. Be a friend of the newspaper, because this is where they put out the information. Make sure that you register your company, formalize your business, your service, so you can be eligible for these tenders. Ensure that you also put together a good proposal, even if it means paying an extra back for someone who is experienced to put together a good proposal for you, and then go through the process and do not lie about what you can deliver and what you cannot, and make sure that you also get into the tenders that you understand. So that has been it for Take Note. Let's keep the conversation going. We'll be back again tomorrow 6:30 to 9 a.m. with more topics that will inform you and educate you, a Ugandan, the Ugandan. Let's keep this conversation going. The hashtag is Morning at 10 TV. I'm Malaki Vilaogdera. Have a blessed day.